Hello, hello, and welcome. Welcome to Dr. Jeff Talks About Sex and Intimacy, the podcast where we explore the real, raw, and relevant aspects of sexual health, relationships, and everything in between. Thank you for joining us today live or on the recording for episode 30, Proactive Relationship Building, Strengthening Your Connection Early with Dr. Brenna Moore. I want to acknowledge and sincerely thank you for being here. Your presence here is everything. You are the reason the podcast exists. Please know that. I'm truly grateful for each and every one of you who tuned in. We're on social media, so I hope you are too. If you're on Facebook, YouTube, X, LinkedIn, Kicks, whatever you're on, we're on there. If you're an X person, if you have a question, you can go to YouTube, you can go to LinkedIn, you can go to Facebook, Kick, any of those, or StreamYard to allow you to send us your questions, and we love your questions. If you're a Facebook person, follow us. The more people that follow us, the more things we can do on Facebook with you. We are on Facebook, but we can do even more when we get lots of followers. So please follow us. Go to the website. On the website, you will find all the previous episodes with the amazing guests that we've had. There are some really great episodes to watch. You can pull up the calendar and look at what's coming up next. We have programming all the way through October, so you can see what's coming up next and what you might want to tune into, hopefully. Also, we're where you are. Listen to us. Listen to us in your car, wherever you are. If you're on Spotify, if you're on Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, whatever you're on, while you're working out, while you're in the car, we're with you. And you can listen to Dr. Jeff Talks About Sex and Intimacy while you roll along or while you exercise or whatever you're doing. I want to remind you all, everyone is welcome in this space. Regardless of your sexual orientation, your gender identity, or your relationship style, everybody is welcome here. It's so miraculous how each of us is different and unique. You are most welcome, and I'm so glad you tuned in. The goal of the podcast is pretty simple. It is to empower and enlighten you with scientific, evidence-based information to improve your sexual health and to deepen your relationship, helping you to love and to live more fully. In this episode tonight, I'm really excited about this episode. We're diving into one of the most powerful but often overlooked tools in relationships, being proactive, working on the relationship before the problems start. I know, sometimes that's a novel idea, but it's a brilliant one. Whether you're in a new relationship, just moved in together, or thinking about a long-term commitment, the early stages of connection matter deeply. How we navigate those first months and years to come, and those years to come, can shape the health, intimacy, and resilience of our relationship for decades to come. Joining me today is Dr. Brenna Moore, a clinical psychologist and relationship expert from the Family Institute at Northwestern University. We'll talk about what makes proactive relationship building so powerful, why waiting until problems arise can be risky, and what real-world strategies couples can use to deepen their connection early and sustain it. So, if you have that special someone that happens to be there with you, listening with you right now, cuddle up together. And if that person is not with you now, envision that person you love as we provide some tools and insights that can help you grow closer on purpose. Who doesn't need more love in their life? And I hope and pray that for you. Dr. Brenna Moore, she is a clinical psychologist and a staff therapist at the Family Institute at Northwestern University. She earned her PsyD in clinical psychology and MA in psychology from Pepperdine University after completing a BS in business administration at the University of Colorado Boulder. Beautiful place. Dr. Moore leads the Couple Prevention Pilot Project as research coordinator, delivering workshops that teach preventative skills for emotional intimacy and conflict resilience. Additionally, her doctoral work explored relational resilience in online dating during COVID-19, reflecting her passion for helping individuals and couples build strength amid interpersonal stress. Dr. Moore leads in innovative workshops that equip couples with practical skills to build emotional closeness, manage conflict effectively, and to protect the relationship against the wear and the tear of life. Her research and clinical work focuses on how couples can stay connected, especially under stress, and how starting strong can lead to deeper, more satisfying intimacy over time. Please welcome my friend and colleague, Dr. Brenna Moore.
Oh, thank you so much, Jeff, for that warm introduction. Everything you've said up until now, it's like, this is such a great lead-in. And I do want to clarify, I am no longer working on that research project because it's come to an end. So I do have to update my bio on my website. But yes, that really actually gave me a lot to work with in our topic today, is being able to realize that how useful even that research study was, and realize looking at what was working for healthy couples and giving them the tools to prevent future conflict, not prevent future conflict, but prevent things from getting worse in the future. It's like a whole new model of looking at and how to work with relationships. So I'm really hoping that it keeps that it takes off after
Cool. It's so good. And I'm so excited to have you here. We worked together. It was so fun. When Dr. Moore was in training, we got to do co-therapy with couples together, which was a blast. And so I am so excited to have you here. You had, from the very beginning, you just had such a wonderful ease with patients. You had such a natural way about you of seeing and perceiving things with the couples, and it just was a joy to work with you. So I'm so excited for you to share your expertise with the audience. So take it away. It's all you.
Thank you, Jeff. And I want to say, for Dr. Albaugh, he's a huge mentor for me, especially in couples therapy work. So this is an honor to be asked by him to be able to present on his podcast, which I love that he's doing this. This is so you, Jeff. So I'm so glad that you're putting out your awesome ideas each week. And today I'm going to be talking about proactive relationship building, either through premarital counseling or coming in whatever stage you are in your relationship. But this is a really emphasis on reframing therapy as preventative care, versus and not so much coming in when stuff's hit the fan. Not coming in more for crisis management, but more for getting the tools that we all need in relationships to be able to communicate in a healthy way. Because many couples wait around 6 years after problems start to seek therapy, but by then patterns are deeply ingrained, and it's sometimes really hard to come back from the wounds that have already caused ruptures in the relationship. So early investment helps couples build strong foundations and avoid accumulating those unspoken hurts, or maladaptive coping strategies like stonewalling, criticism, avoidance, and resentment, which can really build. So my case for premarital counseling, it is a proactive and strength-based approach. It's not about fixing the relationship, it's about learning. And there's so much to learn. Even when you and your partner really know each other well, there's still so much to learn about the relationship itself, about yourself, about how you are in relationship. And the learning also includes how to communicate effectively under stress, how to discuss things like finances, sexual intimacy, parenting, values. Values are a big thing. And how to navigate conflict with curiosity rather than defensiveness. Because that's where it's defensiveness is really what leads to kind of these more maladaptive coping strategies. So think of it as learning the skills for a lifelong team sport before the pressure is on. It's building these tools before the pressure is on, because there's so much that happens in a lifetime that a couple faces together. There's life stressors that are inevitable or unavoidable. And it's really helpful to have these skills, like to learn these skills with your partner so that you can feel more prepared for those unexpected crises later on. And so I'm going to talk about like my own experience with preventative tools. Jeff had mentioned the research project that I worked on, which was like the couples preventative skills workshop. And like I said, that really opened my eyes to how useful it is, even when like couples are doing well, like even when like healthy couples come into therapy, that there's still so much to learn, and that's even like sometimes an even better jumping off point to do the work together, because there's a willingness, there's an openness at that point, and there's not a like trying to come, dig yourself out of like these wounds that have accumulated. And so I want to emphasize, the preventative interventions. Couples who build skills early report greater relationship satisfaction and resilience. And I want to highlight that learning communication and regulation strategies before problems escalate gives couples tools that they can call on during high stress moments later on. Okay. So something that's really important that comes up in my couples therapy work all the time is self-responsibility in relationships. Being proactive isn't about identifying what's wrong with your partner. It's about naming and expressing your needs clearly and calmly. It's about softening your delivery instead of criticizing or blaming. And it's about reflecting on your emotional reactions and owning your experiences. So owning your experiences, an example of that would be reflecting on like what the emotion is and being able to share that, saying like, when this happened, I felt this, without it being more about like blaming or making it your partner's responsibility. And paradoxically, one of the most proactive things we can do in relationships is focus on healing our own wounds and triggers, which I'll come back to in a second. So love takes work. I'm sure that's not a surprise for anyone. But relationships move through many seasons, whether that's grief, career shifts, parenting, aging. People evolve, and long-term success depends on the couple's ability to grow together or to support each other's separate growth. I'm just going to take a sip of water as I'm talking about all this stuff. So proactive couples, they check in regularly. And sometimes that can be like through a scheduled check-in, like that sometimes I'll work with couples on building that into the schedule, or just like a regular like impromptu check-in. And they reassess their goals and values on a regular basis. And so like that requires curiosity and an openness. And they stay curious about their partner in an evolving way. And so I'm not sure how many of you know, I've heard of the term interdependence, but it's a really important term when it comes to relationships. And some you might have heard of the term in the context of like codependence or hyper independence. It's kind of like interdependence is what we're all kind of working towards. Like that's the goal, versus codependence or hyper independence. And basically, it's the mutual balance of support and autonomy in a relationship where both partners feel safe, relying on each other without losing themselves, like without losing your sense of self. And early in relationships is the best time to consciously co-create interdependence. So that's why it's really helpful to learn about this concept. Like go do your own research on this. And there's some really great books. I'm thinking about Passionate Marriage by David Starr, I think his name is. I could be getting that wrong, but that's one where I first learned about that term. I'm sure there's a lot of content out there where you can learn about it. If patterns like criticism, avoidance, name calling are normalized early, it's harder to undo those later. And so those can often like come up in codependent patterns or hyper independent patterns when people don't really understand what they're working towards. And so this is like that consciously co-creating interdependence concept. So I'm going to speak to Gabor Mate's perspective on love and trauma, like just very briefly. I'm not sure of how many of you heard of him. I'm a big fan of him. So he is someone who has a background in trauma, among many other things. And he talks about how we are wounded in relationship, but we also heal in relationship. I mean, I said, I put a but versus an and. We are wounded in relationship and we heal in relationship, which is like a really important concept, meaning, and they included the link there if you want to check out that more on Gabor Mate. But that, his quote really gets at this idea that we come in with basically all of our baggage, all of our background, like the way we were raised, like what we learned in our own family systems. We come in with our own wounds, like either from previous romantic relationships or from our early attachment relationships with our parents or other caregivers. And we show up with those in our relationship. And the best case scenario is we heal those with having corrective experiences with our partner. And our partners, it's not about like if, but when. Our partners will activate this unresolved attachment wounds, often without even meaning to. So this really happens unconsciously. But the goal isn't to avoid being triggered. It's to become aware and responsible for our reactions so we can co-create emotional safety and, like I said, these corrective healing experiences. And I wanted to speak to this last point on the slide. That's where therapy can really help with that. It's a lot to expect couples to know how to navigate that together, like on their own. Some couples can, and that's amazing when that happens. And couples therapy is really helpful for this slide in particular, like for uncovering these kind of these old attachment wounds and being able to get to know yourself and get to know yourself in relationship with your partner. And so, I'll also talk about the energetic awareness in relationships. This is kind of speaking to what I was just talking about, but it's really helpful to be mindful of the emotional and energetic baggage each person brings into a relationship, which includes our past trauma, family dynamics, and generational narratives, patterns we've inherited or absorbed. So relationships are not just psychological, they're energetic. And so proactive work includes tending to the energy we bring and pull together in relationships. And so, that kind of ties into also what I was talking about with these attachment wounds, but it's also the energy we collect every day, and outside of our relationship that we bring into our relationship. So it's really helpful just to be mindful of that, and that's going to impact, our beliefs, how we feel and act towards one another, which is something, again, like couples therapy really helps to bring some mindfulness to all of that. So I understand that there are a lot of barriers to seeking support. I should say a lot, but there are barriers. I want to acknowledge those for the people who are listening who have found it maybe difficult to initiate couples therapy or even find a couples therapist. Like I know that's, even anecdotally on a personal level, a lot of people in my life have told me it's just so hard to find a therapist, let alone someone who's a good fit. So I acknowledge that, and I understand that's so important. The therapeutic relationship is the most important part of the therapeutic process. And so my advice is do not give up, keep trying, whether that's going through your insurance panel, going through places like Psychology Today or Therapy Den, or if there's a specific type of therapy that you're looking for, I'm trained in emotionally focused couples therapy. There is a website, I think it's ICEEFT. Oh, perfect. They just put it in the on the video screen. And there's a place on that website where you can actually find emotionally focused couples therapy, therapists who have been trained in it. And I believe that's under the tab, EFT for the public. And then it says find an EFT therapist. So that's one way. I know that there are other types of couples therapy and other types of therapy in general that also have their own websites where you can find therapists who have been trained in those. So that's another way to find people when, especially if you know a specific type of modality you want to be using. And I understand also the time and financial constraints can be a big factor, and also like financial barriers. So, with those things, what I will say is like the earlier you seek support, the less intense and costly the repair work tends to be. So that's kind of like something to consider, right? When we're thinking about prioritize, like what are our priorities, what are our values? That's where I really feel like finding the time in your schedule, finding the therapist, it really can be so helpful and important for your relationship health in general. And I understand that, like, I know that we're moving in a really helpful direction, but there's still stigma around seeking help. And that's something I really want to stress and highlight that, again, this isn't about managing problems. It's just this proactive way of learning new tools that most of us were not taught in our family systems because they're not necessarily supported by the system at large. And so there's nothing to be ashamed about or embarrassed about not having certain like communication tools. A lot of us come into relationships like really, with that like, limited knowledge of that. And even myself, I'll speak for myself like that. I have learned so much as a therapist, but had I not gone into this career, I would have never learned it. And so there's really so much value in all the things you can learn from couples therapy. And yeah, I will. I also wanted to speak to, I hear a lot of people talk about finding your person, this idea of finding your person. And it's really important, of course, especially when their goal is to find a long-term life partner in a committed relationship. And oftentimes you'll hear on social media, there'll be like videos talking about you'll know in 5 dates if this is a person or not. But I find that to be just a dangerous myth because it does not account for the truth that like real compatibility and emotional safety take time to uncover in one another and in yourselves. And premarital counseling supports deeper discernment. What does it really mean to commit to someone long term? It really helps people like think about, like I was mentioning earlier, like all these major topics that sometimes couples just don't have the chance to address, or they don't feel comfortable, or they don't think about it, including like the finances, like the values, shared values, individual values, parenting, sexual intimacy. There's probably like many more things too. But it helps people. Yeah, there's a lot to think about when we're making a huge lifelong commitment to someone. And it's less about this idealized sense of certainty about someone and more about what I think helps make relationship last is more about shared values, the emotional resilience in the relationship, and the ability to work through hard things together. And it's really hard to know that about someone and about a relationship after 5 dates or after 5 months. I even after a year, I think that sometimes it takes a couple years for couples to really move through something to test them in a way that they haven't been tested before with one another. So not to say that people should, I'm not trying to fear monger, but it's not to incite fear, but it's just more to get people to think about the benefits of talking about a lot of these things early on and exploring these things early on. Okay. So I think I'm coming up on one of my final slides, but love in action. Choosing to invest in your relationship early on is one of the most loving, wise, and courageous things we can do. It's like showing a real commitment to the relationship to yourself, to your partner, because it's like I want this enough to work on this, to be invested, to bring my curiosity and openness to this. So I think it's a really an amazing gesture in a relationship. Therapy isn't a last resort. It's a wellness tool for deepening connection and creating long lasting love. So yeah, something I wanted to like just leave on people's minds is strong relationships aren't built on luck. They're built on tools, time, and teamwork. And something to continue thinking about, which I can mention like towards the end of the podcast, is like, what would proactive relationship care look like in your life right now? Including if you can't make it to couples therapy. There is still plenty of ways to work on things with your partner. And Jeff and I will likely start talking about that. And I will close out my presentation.
Wow, so many good things and such good work. It's like I loved it. I loved it all. So many things that I wanted to talk to you about. First off, we both know, Brenna, when people walk in our, I think you've hit on something monumentally important, because what happens is so often when people walk into our office for couple therapy, they're like, okay, they're done. They've got one foot out the door. They're like, I have so had it with all this, but I figure I better try couple therapy before I throw in the towel, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
Yes.
not a good place to work from. So
Yeah.
what we're trying to instill and ingrain in people is the thought of, way before it gets to that stage, start working on it. What could be more important than your relationship to pour your time and attention into? What could be more important than yourself and your relationship? These are top priorities. And I think self-care and relationship care, there's nothing selfish about that. You can better care for the world and do things for other people when you're caring for yourself and your loved one, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I think that there's nothing selfish about that. I think, right. As you just said, it helps make the world better when we're working on ourselves and our relationship. So great
So
point, Jeff.
so often I find too, Dr. Moore, is people come into therapy, and you brought up this point, and they're like, okay, fix them. This is what's wrong with them. They're doing this wrong. They're doing that wrong. They're doing it. Remember, this is a lot to do for all of us, and we got to stay in our own lanes, and we can only ultimately change and be our best selves. We cannot change others. We can only change ourselves. So I think it's so important when we start therapy. I always try to help people understand change comes from within. You will be the change that you want in this relationship. You cannot expect the other person to be that. You will be that. What we're going to do is help you understand and empathetically join with your partner so you get where they're coming from and why they're doing what they're doing. They can change them, but you can change you. And people think, and I know my friends too will be like, well, and couples come in all the time and like, well, they did this, and so I'm doing that back to them because I'm showing them what that's like. Okay, you hated it when they did that to you, so why are you doing that back to them, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think when I started to learn that these were protective strategies that we were using, because we were being triggered, because we had a story about what the other person was doing or how they felt about us, learning about all that like really empowers people to have a whole new take on conflict, have a whole new experience of their partner, of themselves, so that they don't have to stay in these negative stories about how their partner feels or about how, who they are in this relationship. It really like kind of helps people, yeah, like I said, step into their power in that way, but in like this co-created harmony way.
Yes, yes. I think it's really important. And from Dr. Mate, he said trauma is an invisible force that shapes our lives. It shapes the way we live, the way we love, and the way we make sense of the world. It is the root of our deepest wounds, and it's the lens through which we experience the world, right? We all bring some of that into our relationship. And that's where the self-care is so important, because we got to work on our trauma. Because when you're seeing things through a trauma lens instead of a reality lens, it affects your relationship. It affects things.
Yes.
So I really like that you brought in some of his work, because I think it's powerful, because the truth is, you, me, we all have trauma. If we laid our trauma out there and I said, here's mine, you said, here's yours, all the other listeners put theirs out there, we'd grab our own stuff and run for the hills. I'd be like, I'll take mine. I don't know what to do with yours, right?
Yes, but you make a great point that we all have it. We all have some, there's wounds there for all of us in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so the thing is that empathetic joining is helping you really get your partner. And I know when people come in and they're like, fix them, they're driving me crazy and they don't understand me. And as desperately as you want them to understand you, are you curious, and do you want to understand them that desperately?
Yeah,
And
that is a great question. Yes.
and that's where healing begins. When you are,
Mhm.
I love this person and I really want to get them. When you're in that space, that's when we can do great work in couple therapy.
Yes.
Um, because then you have all these aha moments about their trauma and their different things, and you realize, like everything, like when you have any conflict in a relationship, it's so not about you, but we all think it is. It's about the other person, but our brain always goes to, it's me. What did I do wrong? How did I do? Oh my God. And it's so little to do with you and so much more to do with them.
Yeah, and their history. Yeah, like what they've previously learned about relationships, about how one is loved, how to love someone else, like which build our expectations of ourselves, one another, the relationship. Yeah. Yes.
Gosh, there's so many components and moving parts, but it's such great work, right? It's so fun, and that's why it was so cool to have to be co-therapists together, because then we catch different things. But that's what's so great about partnering. Your partner is this unique, miraculous person that you fell in love with
Mhm.
for their differences and all the things they bring to it. And I think about how much stronger each of us can be by being with a person who has a different paradigm, different views.
Mhm.
My wife sees the world very much through detail, very detail oriented. She sees all the little details, and I'm a big picture person. But sometimes what saves both of us is the details, and we both get the luxury of that purview when I allow that to exist in my relationship and change me and make me a better person. So it's so important to be open. I loved you talked earlier about to continue to be open and curious with your partner and to discover. I've been together with my wife almost 40 years and I still am discovering things about her.
Right, right, because we evolve. We evolve into new versions of ourselves. So like who you and I are different versions of who we were 20 years ago or 40 years, or even like 5 years ago. So in that way, we need people, we ourselves and our partners really need to be able to like evolve together, be curious in that way, support in that way, even if it feels like we're kind of growing in different directions. So yeah, that's
Yes.
where I love what you were saying.
Yes, 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 yes. So many good insights. So I think remaining curious is a really good thing. And so when people think about, and there's so much good information out there that you can find on some of the sites and stuff about communication, and just like you started to talk a little bit about, and we do a lot of work. So what are the biggest things that people are having trouble with in relationship? Communication probably tops the list as one of the big things, right? Sometimes people are like, it's money, it's this, but what it's really is communication about money, communication about different things, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
teaching them to communicate different. But all of us, I included, Dr. Moore included, we all fall into our patterns. So you've come in to see the therapist because what you're doing doesn't work, but you fall right back into that broken pattern over and over. Oh yeah,
Mhm.
well, if you're going to do that, then I'm going to do this to you. That
Mhm.
some people call it tit for tat kind of mentality that never works in a relationship.
Right. Like the fight, the fault finding, the blame. Really, ultimately, everyone's like, it's about who's right, who's wrong. But it's not about that. It's really not about, that's not the goal of figuring out who's right or wrong. It's more
Right.
about being able to understand each other, even if you can't like come to the same like viewpoint or agreement on something.
We can fix it, or we can waste the entire session figuring out how the other person did injustices to you and how you did injustices to them, right? Or we can work on fixing conflict resolution. We can work on fixing the problem, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
And
And healing.
so teaching those communication skills is so important. And you talked a little about it, speaking in I language. So, we have two ways of approaching it. You're upset. I get it. You're really upset about it. So you're like, oh my God, I can't even believe you did this. You always go into my desk. I don't know what happened to that check. I can't find it. You walk into my station, you redo it. I can't believe how you do that. And it's something you always do. And your mother did it, as a matter of fact, or whatever. They're pulling in all this stuff and you're like, whoa, they're making a case, right?
Yeah. And there's a lot of you, like focus external.
And look at your fingers when you say you, all these pointing back at me. So I language. I feel this when this happened, and I need this from you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
People struggle with this, so they go, I feel you're nasty. That's not a feeling, right? That's not a feeling. I feel frustrated when I can't find the check on my desk. That's a space that I really, it's an important space to me. And I know you like things to be a certain way, and I appreciate that about you, but my desk, I need you to respect that, not going on to my desk and taking things off of there. And then together, when we lose things, to help me find it. So I feel this and I need that. It can't be a dissertation either, because the point of listening effectively is being able to reiterate back. Why should I reiterate back what the person said? Two really important reasons. One is I listened, and what you said was really important to me, and this is what I heard. And second, did I get it right? Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, right. Yeah, to make sure that you're like really taking in the points that the person's saying, or else it's a wasted conversation, or else we're totally missing each other.
It never happened until they reiterate back to you. How do you know that the message was received?
Right.
So I
And
think
it really does help someone feel heard when you repeat back what someone is saying. There is a sense of like, okay, this person actually was paying attention. Like you said, they care about what I'm talking about. They find it important too. They find what's happening for me also important.
presence is so powerful. Being fully present. My wife taught me this when she said, "You will not be multitasking when you are talking to me." So put the computer, put the phone away, get off the computer, look me in the eyes, raises dopamine, all kinds of good things happen, and let's talk about this. So that's another important communication strategy. And then soften up your approach. I know you're upset, you're mad, you want to plead your case. It should be a couple sentences long, speak in I terms, and then soften. You love this person. Soften up the approach. Nobody wants to receive that hardball that you're throwing.
Right. It really helps to be regulated. Like it really helps when we kind of come to these conversations from an emotionally regulated place. So like if you're super hot and super like angry, it's probably better to take a beat and help yourself just kind of calm down, because that way your partner is going to be able to receive that more versus that intense kind of like, energy.
Totally. Well, let's go to a couple of questions. Let's go to our first question that we have from listeners. What are some of the most common mistakes couples make in the early stages of a relationship that can hurt long-term connection?
Great question. I have found that it's in those protective strategies and like the less adaptive ones, the more harmful ones, when we are engaged in name calling, yelling, criticism, letting resentments build over time, but not addressing them and not being able to fully resolve them. Those are things that, early on can really create some wounds later on and make it hard to like rebuild trust and reestablish emotional safety in the relationship.
Definitely. Those horsemen from Gottman love to trot across the relationship with defensiveness, criticism, contempt. And then you're like, well, I won't say anything. Well, that's another big problem. It's called stonewalling. So Yeah, and I know Vic has the Gottman information if you'd like to learn more. That was one of my training sites was John and Julie Gottman, the Gottman Institute, and they have a lot of great resources if you're looking for things to help you avoid those horsemen and those really, and we all do them. There's no shame or blame here. We all tend to be reactive, and I'm like you would never guess I'm a bit of an emotional person. And so sometimes I react emotionally too. So I think sometimes taking a little break, but saying, let's take a breather, come back to it in 15 minutes, or let's come back to it this evening, but always let's come back to it with a plan to come back to it. But taking a breather, thinking about it, decompressing a little, that's another strategy that can be really helpful when you're talking about something super important and emotionally charged.
Mhm. Yeah, this is bringing me back to when we were working together. Dr. Albaugh gave me like the best opportunity to be able to shadow him and work with him and co-therapist. So this is just reminding me of like how you in sessions and how helpful, like there's still so many nuggets that I say to couples today that came right from your mouth. I love it.
Well, I have lots of good ones that came from yours too. So it goes just like in a great relationship, any relationships in life, it goes both ways. And that's really important. I love that interdependent stuff that you talked about too, because I think what makes sometimes a relationship fall apart is when someone feels like I'm holding this whole relationship up. I'm doing all this. I'm doing it all. There's not a reciprocal thing going on here. And I think that can be very detrimental to relationships when you feel like, wow, this person has my back. That interdependence, it's a cool concept.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Or when we feel really dependent, like we become dependent on our partners for everything, socially, socializing. There's just so many aspects that where we can start to become enmeshed and realize that we have consciously or unconsciously, we lose our sense of self. And that does not really breed for a healthy relationship because we need to be able to be ourselves, our authentic selves, in order for us to feel fully expressed, in order to feel like appreciated just for who we are from both partners.
Yes, yes. I love Brene Brown's work where she says, you know, connection where we feel seen, heard, and valued by that other person and not judged. So, and we have an episode coming up this fall I'm super excited about. We just lined it up with Dr. Data on bringing your authentic self, becoming your authentic self so you can show up with that authentic self in your relationship to deepen
Love that. Love that topic because I've also recently got more training in internal family systems. That's all about self energy and understanding our different parts. So I love this whole concept of embodying your authentic self is like really where I'm going with my
I'm right there
professional
with
life.
you. I'm right
Yeah.
there with you. I'm right there with you because here's the thing. We all have all our wounds, our brokenness, or whatever. And what's amazing about love is it's like when we get some of that unconditional love from our partner where it's like, I see you, I hear you, I see your dilemmas and your trauma. I love you and I don't care about any of that. That's a big deal to feel that kind of love from a friend, from a parent, from a partner. So I think that's a really good concept.
Yes, what you're talking about, real quick, just to say like that, because that's those corrective experiences that we get in relationship. What Gabor Mate was saying, I might also be butchering his name, so I apologize if I am. But what he was talking about, like how we show up in relationships wounded, but we can also heal, and we do heal in relationships, right? When we can be fully seen and loved in that kind of unconditional way, we can have these corrective healing experiences that like are both healing for the relationship, but also for ourselves.
Yes, to know that we're inherently worthy, to know that we're worthy of love and belonging and all those important things. But I think that's what's amazing is, I think your relationship, and yes, you're going to drive each other crazy. I can say my wife will tell you that I drive her insane sometimes, and our differences, it can drive you, but it can also make you stronger. Like I said about the details and the big picture, when you bring those two worlds together, it's more powerful. And so I think we can heal. I think it's so important to be involved with other people. And I know it's complicated and scary and you're vulnerable and all that stuff, but it is the path to healing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just loving sexual relationships, but it's any really good, wonderful, meaningful relationship.
Yes, agreed.
Another question. Do you have any advice for people who grew up without healthy relationship models? And there's a lot of folks who can say that. How can they proactively create the kind of partnership they never saw? Great
Yeah.
question.
Yes. Really great question. That's many of us, many of us, like, either we had minimal healthy models for relationship or no models, no healthy models. Not, this isn't like a blame the parents kind of situation. It's like they were all doing the best they could, and coming from previous generations where communication, emotional processing, those things were not valued by society. So that's what I was saying earlier. Like, as a society, we don't really, we show up in these experiences without a lot of training, without a lot of
Mhm.
knowledge about how to communicate in these healthy, like, softened, authentic ways. We need help, and there's no shame in that. So I think the best way to do that is either through therapy, if you have access to that, or just like on your self-learning journey. There's great books out there like Nonviolent Communication. Pull up the author because I don't know the person offhand. But learning about your attachment styles. Uh, there's a great book called Hold Me Tight, which is by Dr. Sue Johnson, and that comes from that emotionally focused therapy lens that goes into attachment theory as well. But she talks about different ways to improve communication. There's so many books, like John Gottman, the website they previously posted. John Gottman offers a lot of tips on healthy communication. Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of people you can follow on social media, like I think it's called the Holistic Psychologist. I hope I'm getting that right. She posts a lot of content. So I think that it's almost like content overload. It's just figuring out what resonates for you. What helps you
Mhm.
understand yourself, what gives you ways where you're like, yes, that I want to be talked to that way, and I want to talk to other people that way.
I think that's so important. I know I was trained also by Andrew Christensen in integrative behavioral couple therapy, and I think we have a site for that. And he wrote a book, Reconcilable Differences. It's very good as well. There's so many good resources out there, finding good resources. So just look and see what you can find, and but a lot of really good stuff. And so I think it's really important. I'd like to go to our centering exercise now because it's been a lot of content, a lot of good stuff, and we want to get you centered again. And so let's do that. And so, you know how we do in this podcast. This is what we do. We do our centering exercise. So let's wrap up episode 30 with a brief grounding centering exercise to reinforce proactive connection. Not reactive, but proactive. So sit comfortably with your feet flat on the floor. Get in a comfortable position. Close your eyes or gaze softly downward. Now, remember how we do this. Breathe in through your nose for about 4 counts. Hold for 2. Exhale slowly through your mouth for 6 counts. Repeat this cycle for 4 breaths. In through your nose for 4 counts. Hold for 2 counts at the top. Exhale slowly through your mouth for 6 counts. As you inhale, imagine inviting warmth and openness into your chest. On the exhale, allow any tension around relationships, like worry or doubt, to soften and release. Silently affirm, I choose presence. I choose presence. I cultivate care. I cultivate care. I invest in connection. I invest in connection. Let each phrase take root on your next 3 breaths. I choose presence. I cultivate care. I invest in connection. As you gently open your eyes or refocus, before moving on, set one small intention for connection, a kind word, a shared moment, or a space to listen. Set that intention in your mind. What's an intention? It's something that you want to bring to fruition. It's something you want to manifest. I want to bring more love and more light into the world every day. I want to bring more kindness into what I do every day in each moment. I want to be fully present in what I do. What's your intention? What's your couple intention? Do you have a shared intention? Think about that. That could be a fun thing. Well, Vic, can you tell us what's coming up next week on Dr. Jeff Talks About Sex and Intimacy?
Anxiety doesn't just live in the mind. It shows up in our bodies, our relationships, and our bedrooms. In this episode, Dr. Jeff is joined by Alicia Williams, licensed professional counselor and certified sex therapist, to explore how anxiety affects emotional closeness, sexual connection, and our sense of safety. We will unpack the ways anxiety can interfere with desire, arousal, and communication, and offer practical tools for navigating these challenges. Because when we understand the anxiety-intimacy connection, we can begin to heal it. Join us on August 5th at 7 p.m. Central Time to learn more.
Wow, this has been such a great episode, and we've unpacked some really cool things. And it just, I miss seeing you. It was such a blessing having you at Jesse Brown with me and couples therapy, working side by side. And you're doing such great work at the Family Institute. Just thanks for blessing me with your presence and all of our listeners with all of your knowledge. And is there anything you'd like to pass along as a final message to listeners?
Thank you, Jeff, Dr. Albaugh.
All good.
This has been an amazing opportunity. So thank you for it. Thank you for all the listeners who have listened and tuned in. And I think the biggest thing I want people to remember is that relationships are like living systems, and they need nourishment. We can't go on autopilot. Like, love is not static. It's like a river, and we have to learn to swim together as the current shifts, because it will. It's not if, but when. And so doing that together is an active process. And with that, I wish everyone the best of luck.
I love it. I love it. So where's your love river? And what direction do you want your love river to go? And don't we need more love in the world? That's my hope and prayer for you. Thanks for joining us.